Okay, this is a short video on my breadboard setup I'm using for the circuit. I have my USB to RS-232 serial converter here in the breadboard, and it basically has the connections from left to right are ground, then receive, transmit, 5 volts, 3.3 volts, and reset. I'm basically just going to be using the ground, the transmit, and the 5 volts. So I'll use the 5 volts from this chip basically to power both the MCU and the display. But I'll also be using the programmer, so I won't be using the power from this converter while I flash the chip. I'll use my 5 volt power supplies separately to flash the chip. Then I'll just disconnect all that and then connect up the serial converter here, and it's 5 volts to power the chip and the display. And you can see I have the microcontroller over here, the 324P, and I've got power and ground on this side connected up. Remember, on these chips, if you're going to be using any of the pins on this side, any of the ports on this side of the chip, you got to power it up, hook up your VCC and ground. And then on the other side, you also have power and ground over here. And over here we have our display, and I have little short jumper wires hooked up for ground and power here too. So you can see I got them hooked up for power and ground to the pins. Now we're going to run, like I had in the circuit, we're going to run, start wiring up our display. I'll just start wiring up the bus here, the data bus. If you look at the data sheet for the display, the least D0, the least significant bit for the data bus is pin 19. So this is pin 19. I got it hooked up already here on the display, and then we're going to run it to port C. Port C is 0 pin. And basically, we're just going to keep doing that for each. Go to D1 and the display, over to D1 or C1. This is port C, pin 1. I know the picture isn't great on here, it's a little out of focus. Let's just give you a general idea of how I have it set up on the hardware end of it. And I'll continue to wire this up. We'll do the data bus first, all to port C, and then the rest of them, the reset, chip enabled 0 and 1, and then A0, A1, A2, all those, which are basically, most of them are on this side. I'll run them over to port A on the microcontroller over here. And for flashing the chip, I have I followed all of newbiehack.com's little showing his hardware setup and software setup for flashing the chip. So I made my own little circuit board just following his instructions, and basically it just plugs in over into the microcontroller. Like that. And then I'll run, I have a couple of, I have a little 5-volt power supply. You can't see it on screen, it's just off screen. And basically I'll just run out, I'll run these little jumpers, one's for ground, and I'll put it to the ground. The blue, I have it set up with the blue strip on the breadboard is ground, the red is your power rail. So I'll just hook those up. And at this point, the serial converter is not even hooked up. I'll hook up the 5-volt power supply off screen into here to these power rails, and then I'll flash the chip, and then I'll just disconnect the programmer, and then I would disconnect the 5-volt power supply I have off screen. And then once the chip is flashed, then I'll hook up the and I'll show later video how I hook up the serial converter when we get to that point. Right now, like I said, we're gonna program the chip, flash the chip. In my next video, I'll go over the programming. Basically, we'll flash the chip with our program, just so we can get one of these digits to light up here. And once we get one digit lit up, then all the other ones are going to be programmed basically the same way. And then we'll move on to getting serial data from the simulator software, get it over the USB line, into the microcontroller, and then over to the chip. I don't know why I'm basically separating the power supplies when I flash the chip, and then when I hook up the serial converter. I'm just trying to kind of separate any conflicts that may happen when I flash the chip, and it's stuff I'm not really sure of, so I'm just like being extra cautious. And just keeping power supplies separate. So I know how to flash the chip with the 5-volt power supply of off screen, and so I just stick to the same routine. I flash the chip, it's all set and good to go, and then I'll pull out the programmer and the power supply, and I know that with the serial converter I can run it off the 5 volts off the converter, and it powers. I'll just basically hook the 5 volts from the converter into the power rail on the breadboard, and then ground it, and then run one wire from the transmit on the converter over to the receive, the UART receive on the microcontroller. And like I said, I just keep those two separate. Just in case there's something I don't know about with power supplies or short circuiting or whatever, and so basically that's why I'm doing that. And in the next video, we'll start on programming. Basically, we'll set up our port, like I said, our port C as our data bus, and then we'll have to enable the chip. The display chip, enable it, and then send it a write signal. There's a table of ASCII type codes that show you what ones and zeros you have to send over the data bus to get what number you want, or what letter you want, or what ASCII symbol you want. And that, like I said, that'll be going over the port C, and then the port A will be controlling what digit the ASCII symbol will show up on, and also the write cycle. Basically, you have to start low and then just send it a little the right pin a high bit, and then bring it back low again, and that writes the data to the display.